of Yeshaya Hanavi, it speaks about the prophecy of Mashiach's times and how the Eibishter will take vengeance against Edom for what they did to the Yidden. That's at the beginning of Yeshaya Perek Samach Gimel. It starts off by saying, Miza Bama Edom, who is the one? In other words, Hashem, is referring to Hashem, is the one that's going to come from Edom himself. Chamutz Godim Botzra, he's coming filthy. This garment came dirty from Botzra, a city in Edom. Someone that was strengthened and beautiful in his garment, and it says, Ani medaber b'tzedakah rav le'yeshia. We're going to talk about many parts of this pasuk. We're going to talk about later on. I'm speaking with tzedakah. I'm much to save and to help. And then it says that, like it asks about Hashem. Madua adam ulvushecha. Pasuk Pei says, why is your garments red? Uvgadecha kedorich begas, and your garments and your clothing is like someone that like crushes grapes in a wine press, that they used to like physically go in and used to step on the grapes in the wine press, and obviously the entire garments became red and dirty. The same thing, he's using this as an expression of Hashem going to take vengeance against what Edom did to the Jewish people. And his garments are completely full of blood and so on, because the battle and Kaviyachal that he's seeking vengeance from the Edom. And then goes on in the third pasuk, Pura darachti levada, the wine press, I have done this alone. I have pressed it alone. In other words, I myself, the Abishah says, have done this. Einish iti, there's no person with me. Vedrchem ba'api, and I've crushed them with my anger. V'emersim chamasi, and I've treaded over them, and I've trampled them with my rage. V'yez nitzchum al godai, and the sprinkle of the victory. In other words, their blood is like sprinkled on my al godai, my clothing. Chol malbushay agolti, and all my garments I have made disgusting. So these are the first three psukim. And a lot of the rest of the Haftarah goes on, or the beginning of the Haftarah goes on in that vein. And the Rebbe in this Maimer that we're going to learn right now is going to explain and talk about a lot of these psukim al pi Kabbalah. So this is a Maimer, now to the text of the Maimer, B'siyat Shmaya, Shabbos, Parshas Emer, Chav Ir, Tafshin, Chav Daled. And the Rebbe begins on what it says in our parsha. It speaks about the koyanim cannot become tamei. That's the beginning of our parsha. But then there are exceptions that you can get tamei to family members. One of the family members talks about that the kohen may become tamei to is and to his unmarried sister that's close to him, that she was never with a man, to her he may become tummy or should become tummy. Isa bezoyar is brought on the zoyar on this pasuk when his buyer become a drusha. That's explained in many mamorim, and amongst the mamorim that this topic is explained in, the same mimer, the same Divra Maskal from the year Tafresh Chavtes of the Rebbe Marash, 1869. Divra Maskal Zev Bichor Moriad Moritz Tzedek, and this mimer is also in the booklet of the manuscripts of Mamorim of Tzemach Tzedek, Shenivda Loy Mizman B'Pidin Shvuim, that was only recently taken out of captivity because the Rebbe calls the redemption of books and bring them out from behind the Iron Curtain at that time in 1964, that this is called Pidin Shvuim, redeeming the captives. Shetochni is Bar Lahalam, that the content of these two Mamorim will be explained as we go on through this Maimon. So the Zohar says as follows: Rababa Pasach, Rababa began. Miza Bama Edom, Chamus Godom Batzar. Who is the one coming from Edom, filthy from garments from Batzar? The Zohar explains Shekos of Zeh Koyal Agula Asida Migol Sarabi Golos Edom. This pasuk is referring to the future redemption, which is the fourth Golos Edom. We know there are four Golias There's Galus Mitzrayim, Galus Yavan, Galus Bavel, and Galus Edom, our final Galus that's under Rome, that's considered under Edom. That is the final the Galus that it's talking about the redemption of, which is going to be with Mashiach's coming. Then Hashem will dress himself in garments of vengeance upon Edom. To such a degree, that's how much he will be involved in taking vengeance against Edom. The innun levushin yistavun, that these garments will become dirtied and filthy. Though this is what it says over there in Yeshaya Navi, v'chol malbusha egolti. All my garments I have made disgusting, I've made filthy. Messiah, and the Zohar concludes. This is a Zohar on the pasuk of Vlachotho Absula Krevelish. So the Zohar is connecting the Geula Hasidah that speaks about in Yeshaya Kapitel Samach Gimel with what it says. Kol kach lama. Why does Hashem go through such unbelievable type of involvement and engagement for taking vengeance from Edom? Because it says and to his sister, the unmarried, the virgin, to her he will become tamei. Begina for her sake, chulu. In other words, for the sake of Achoisa Absula that we're going to talk about, that's the Jewish people. La kamala chulu, to raise her up, to raise up the Jewish people. That's why Hashem is willing even to filthy his garments and to personally engage in vengeance against Edom, as the Maimer is going to explain how and what that is. To be able to understand this, we first have to preface how you do what's known. That how do the external ones, how do the clippers derive and nurse their life force, even though it's a very minimal amount of life force? That's why we call it nursing, like a baby nursing, very, very small amount of life force. But it cannot come directly from the spheres themselves because they are too high and too holy that the clippers should be able to, in any way, take from it chayes directly. What do we mean by saying they cannot take from the spheres themselves? From the lights and from the vessels which are called gufim, like we have in Paschal Yo every Friday afternoon. We say this, that the oiris are considered like the chayes, the neshamas, the souls, and the kalim are likened to the bodies. But so since the chitzonim, since the klippos cannot derive their life force of vitality directly from the spheres, even from the bodies of the spheres, even from the kalim of the spheres, so where did the klippos do derive their life force? From the garments, only from the garments themselves. That's where the klippos, the chitzonim, can take their chayes from, can nurse their life force from. Not from the inner part of the garments. They can only take from the external part of the levushim bilvad. So the Rebbe goes on and says, that's all fine and good. And you're telling me they cannot take from the spheres themselves, they can only take from what's called the garments of the spheres. Kabbalah brings down that there's, in the Oil Masal Yonim, there's not just the oiris and not just the kalim, there's the levushim, the garments of the bodies of the kalim, and there's the heichalos, there's the chambers, that's an even more external part, just like the person is dressed himself in a garment and he finds himself in a heichal, in a chamber, in a room. So it's explained that the klippos take from the garments and the external part of the garments. But the Rebbe says that even taking from the external garments is also a problem. How come? We still need to understand, even concerning the level of the garments. It says in the pasuk, my glory I will not give to someone else. Someone else, the acher in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, in Mamor Chazal is always speaking about something other than Hashem, Sitra Achra, the other one. We know that garments are called the thing that gives me honor. It's even called by the term my honor. As we know, as we find the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan called his garments those that honor me. So therefore, since we know that what's Hashem's covet, the level of covet is the level of garments. So if my garments, if the Eibishter's garments, he does not share with an acher, with klippus, how is it possible that the external ones, the klippus, should be able to nurse and receive their life force and vitality from the garments? But the idea behind this is because some him the spheres that the way they nurse, they get it from the garments of the sphere of chesed specifically. Special, unique garments. From garments in general, even the level of garments which are external to the kalim and the spheres, they cannot nurse. But specifically, the garments of sphere chesed is unique, that does allow for the klippus to be able to nurse. Since the chesed of above is no way of giving a flow without any boundary, therefore from the garments of chesed, it's possible that even the external one will be able to receive nursing. That's the idea of chesed. It doesn't make any distinctions, like Ramar Masfir Sa'imr explained, Gevura, limits, Tiferes, the combination between the chesed and Gevura. But chesed says, I don't know what you do when I don't know anything about you. I just give. So from the level of chesed, at least the garments of the level of chesed, it's possible even the klippus to receive. We see an example of that, like we find about Avraham Avinu. They said, Halavai, that Yishmael should live before you. Avraham Avinu told Hashem. How come Avraham Avinu was aware of who Yishmael was? He wasn't ignorant. He wasn't oblivious to what type of son Yishmael was. So why do you want Yishmael to live? They said, since the idea of Avram is the sphere of Chesed, in Metzazation, in Smoking Gam Yishmael, because of this, there's also room even for someone a Yishmael. In a similar vein, one can say that the fact that Avraham Avinu was Machnis Erchim, and the Rebbe always emphasized the idea he was Machnis Erch to our Vim, the Arab. That they bow down to Avodah Zarah. And what type of Avodah Zarah? The lowest type of Avodah Zarah. La'avak shal gaber agleim, to the dust that was on their feet. It was lowest form of Avodah Zarah they bow down to. And still in all, he did with them chesed. Why? Because of chesed, it's possible in Tzadzev, from the Yinikah Klippus, it's possible from chesed to have a Yinikah to Klippus. Even though the chiddush with Yishmael is a greater chiddush, because by Dachnosas Orchim, one could perhaps say that Avraham Avinu did so with an ulterior motive. He was using that opportunity of Achnosas Orchim to bring them Tachas Kamfi Ashchina, because he told them after they finished eating, you should bench, you thank Hashem, and if they didn't want to, he would coerce them through charging them an arm and a leg for their food and drink, etc., etc. Mashenka with Yishmael, there was no provisions and conditions attached to it. He says, Lu Yishmael Yichle Panachas, or in a way, the chesed that Avraham Avinu was showing to Yishmael was even more powerful, because it wasn't about deriving any type of spiritual gain. It was just chesed alone. So we're saying that this type of idea that klippus can nurse is so strong. It's not just that the klippus now exist, but the klippus can go ahead and now use that energy that they receive from Kedusha and oppose Hashem. They oppose Hashem and His anointed one, Val Am Yisrael, and the nation of Yisrael, to such a degree that the klippus use this chesed that they get from the Eibishter, until it becomes the idea of exile. Top of the next page. So therefore, it should be able to be the redemption from the exile. With this batli and the klippus, the external ones, their nursing should cease, because that's the way the goal stops, like Alter Rebbe explains also in Tanya, that the entire existence of the klippos of the goyim comes because of what they're able to nurse from kedusha. So to be able to stop the klippos from doing and oppressing the Yidden and having golas, we need to like cut it off at its source. We need to remove the source of life. So therefore, to do so, the Eibishter needs to counter the levushim that from which the klippos receive its chayas with his levushim. You need to fight fire with fire. You need to use levushim to counter the levushim that the klippos receive their chayas from. Hashem has to become enclosed in the garment of victory. That this victory is a result of judgment and severity. Soon we can explain that Netzach is on the side of the right, but still in all, it is able to defeat and come and bring into fruition the judgment and severity. What's the idea of Netzach, of victory, to stand against an enemy and to battle with him and to defeat him? Like it says, why are your garments red? What does that mean? That the Eibishter becomes enclosed in the garments of judgment and severity, which is the idea of red. The color red is associated with the Midas Hadin and Midas HaGvura. So we say the Eibishter's garments are red, that means he enclosed himself in the midah of din and gvuram, levushe nukma, garments of vengeance. And when Hashem does so, his battle will become nullified. It will cease. The external ones, the klipa, being able to nurse their life force from the kedusha, which initially they took from the garments of chesed. This is also what it says in the pasuk that the victory and their defeat now splatters and sprinkles on my clothes, and all my garments I have made disgusting, I've made dirty. What does it mean, nitzcham? That their netzach I have sprayed on me. It doesn't. It should say my victory. What does it mean? Their victory. It means their capability to be victorious over kedusha, their capability to nurse from kedusha, meaning nitzcham hainu mashakiblu yinika datam chislavucha chesed. What does it mean, nitzcham? What they received and they nursed up till now from the garments of chesed. That's the midah of netzach. That's a branch of chesed, as I mentioned before in passing. That we know that chesed and gvura are general spheres, and like we have right away at the beginning of the Tanya, there is chesed v'anafel, gvura v'anafel. There's the branches of chesed, the branches of gvura. The branch of chesed is netzach. So therefore, the klippos that that are able to nurse their chayis from the garments of chesed, therefore they had to do with netzach, and that's nitzcham. And when Hashem defeats them, so then their netzach now splatters on the Eibishter's clothes. But through the victory in war, from the netzach of the judgment, from the victory of Hashem's gevuram, now it splatters back on the Eibishter, meaning the Eibishter now takes back that which the klippos took from the midas netzach of kedusha. That's they were able to nurse from the midas netzach because it's an extension of chesed of kedusha, and instead through the Eibishter using the netzach of din, he is able to have that return to him. It splatters back on him. That their victory splatters on my garments. In all my garments I've made filthy. It's the idea of the Eibishter becoming enclosed in garments of vengeance, so as to nullify and to extract that which the klippos nurse. Pratis Yosef, more specifically, in Betevis Egolti Yesh Beis Pirush, in the word Egolti, there's two explanations. Echad Lashon Giul Umius. One is in the word something despicable, disgusting. That is the word Egolti. I became disgusting. In other words, I became filthy and disgusting from the splatter of them upon my garments. Another meaning is in the word redemption, that you're releasing from exile. This means through the fact that all my garments I have made disgusting in a way of despicable and so on. To clothe myself in garments of vengeance, to nullify the nursing of the external ones. So now becomes a redemption and a release from captivity of those garments of kindness, of chesed, that initially the klippa nursed from. So now I have released those from captivity. So my clothes becoming disgusting is a geula for the chesed that's in klippa. That which initially came down to the klippas from the garments of kindness, will return and become and ascend and become part of its source and its root. That's the idea of filthy in garment, but also chamutz could also mean like vinegar. The idea of something that has a sourish, like chametz, sourdough. It comes from sourdough. It has like a tang to it, and so on. What does this indicate? It's explained in a different place. About that, it says, "To him, nations will gather." So the yikas nasiva with kibbutz, the simple meaning of yikas is like I just now translated, that it means collecting and gathering. The kolmakim nemar haloshin yikas, still and all the expression that's used is yikas. It could have said lo yamim yasfu, lo yamim yikbetzu. Why does it use this very unusual term yikas? Because the word yikas has in it also another related type of meaning, meloshin kiyuha, from the word a sharpness, a tanginess, a tartness. In charifus v'chamitzus, the idea of sharpness and like a strong sourness, acidic type of thing, like chametz b'gadim that we said before. And what's that about? He says, like Alter Rebbe brings down in Tanya, that Yitzchak told Esau to bring matamim. Asayli matamim kasher ahafti. Why does it say matamim in the plural? Tasty things in the plural. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya explains there's two types of tasty items. There's tasty, that something is tasty because it's sweet and pleasant tasting. And then there's a certain type of taste that comes from sharp and sour and tangy flavored things. And that type of tasty is even better because it's the sapech meriru lemisko, because the bitter is transformed to the sweet, that it becomes a tasty thing from taking something that is a negative taste and making it into a good taste. And that is the same idea. So that's lo yikas amim, that the nations of the world, meaning all the nitzutas and all the negativity, become in a way of kiyuha, becomes like a tasty thing that becomes from transforming bitter to good. The same thing when we say about the Eibishter chamutz begadim v'zogam inin chamutz begadim. That also it's a very strange expression to use when you're using that his garments became dirty. But he uses the word chamutz, it's talking about the sourness and the sharpness. That comes about. Where does the sourness and sharpness derive? It comes from refining and elevating. That what was being nursed, that came initially to the external ones. Similar to items that are very sharp very tart and sour and acidic, that become refined and they become transformed to good and they become a tasty food. So that's like the two explanations in the word agolti. Agolti from the word it became disgusting, and then also agolti from the word geula, that we're removing it and redeeming these sparks from clip. It says cholavushai egolti. It says chamutz begadim. So there's the begadim of kedusha. There's the garments of holiness, and those garments of kol holiness are now getting another level. They're getting the level of chamutz, the level that acidic, that sourness, that sharpness and tartness that they didn't have before. Meaning they're getting a higher level than they had before engaging with the klippa and elevating the sparks and klippa. This is what it says, that the vine and the wines and so on, I have pressed and I have trampled myself. What does it mean, myself? In other words, Hashem did not engage and involve others in the trampling of those nations that he defeated. I know Hashem in his own glory and self. He himself needs to clothe himself in these garments of vengeance to battle with the clippers. How come? So he's saying, well, that similar to it was when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. And we know the whole time that it brings down. Like you may say, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders in the future redemption. That the future redemption will copy and mimic those things that took place in Yetzias Mitzrayim. So just like when it was in Yetzias Mitzrayim, the redemption was through Hashem himself in his own glory and essence. Kidrosh Razal, the Chazal say, I am not a malach, I am not a sorah, I am not a messenger, I and no one else is the one that will bring about the geula, that brought about the geula from Mitzrayim, that the Eibishter himself descended to Mitzrayim to take the Yidden out, like we say in the Haggadah. The question is why? Why couldn't the Eibishter appoint a malach, a shliach, even a very high malach like Srafim is a very high level? Still, because he called Bechinas Elu. All these levels, regardless of how high they are, malach, saraf, shliach, va'acher, all these different levels, if they would have come down to Mitzrayim, not only would they not have been able to defeat the Klippos and extract the sparks of Kedusha that are embedded there and extract the Yidden that are embedded in Mitzrayim, but they themselves, the Malach, the Sadaf, the Shliach, and so on, they would have been lost in the Klippos as well. It's similar to what it says concerning the Nephilim, that it says that Nephilim were those Malachim that fell down from above, down here in earth. And they said, why do you value man so much? We are much holier, we are much greater. And the Eibishter said, let's see how much greater you are. And the Eibishter threw them down from Shemayim and put them in physical bodies. And instead of demonstrating their angelic qualities, they became even worse, and they led the world astray, etc., etc. So we see that there are certain levels and certain descents that Malachim cannot handle. So even if the Eibishter would have sent without a body, a Malach, a Sadaf, a Shliach, or an Acher, they would have instead of extracting the Eden from Mitzrayim and extracting the sparks of holiness from Mitzrayim, they would have been lost over there. Therefore, it had to be the taking the Eden out of Mitzrayim through the Eibishter himself. And the same way, when Mashiach comes, it's going to be the same thing, that the Eibishter himself, Pura Darachti Lavadi, I myself am the one that's going to take the Eden out of Golus, and I'm going to engage with taking the sparks out from Edom, because otherwise, if the Eibishter would appoint someone else to do so, a Malach and so on, it would have become, instead of extracting the sparks from Klippa, it would have become lost in Klippa. Any questions?